Hola, ¿cómo
Sinister
estás? For our
Mysteries.
Spanish Espanol listeners.
Oh, how far are you going to be going with that tonight,
Oh,
senor?
no, that's as far as I can go right now. But as we
Because how
progress,
do
it
you
might get
say
better.
how do you say glysophate in Spanish?
I think it's glysophate. I
Yeah,
think it's, I
probably
just,
so. No bueno.
yes, no bueno.
That's how
Muy
you
no
say that.
bueno.
No bueno, muy no bueno.
Yes.
So, welcome everyone to what I think is a very important episode because we're going to be looking tonight at poison for profit, which is rampant. So, we're going to touch on, I don't know, I have 6 or 7 cases to mention specific things. Most of them I don't think will be news to you. And of course, Craig is bringing his own, but there are probably 3 times as many that we could be talking about. This is rampant,
Yeah.
and there's been movies and documentaries, and Aaron Brockovich and Silkwood, and all of those different kinds of things down through time. But I got a notification today, Craig, because all the research I was doing, and this is the way that these internet notifications should work in my mind. BASF just made a big announcement yesterday, which I'll talk about at the appropriate time tonight. They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars, these companies, but it doesn't matter. Just to set it up, just to put it out there. Because there are no criminal charges, and none of them have actually admitted to any kind of wrongdoing. So when you're making billions of dollars,
But I was just like one of the comments too. King, who's watching on YouTube, he just same thing. He was just saying it's like profit. It's hard to make a profit now. Oh no. No, you got to, like, when everybody was struggling during COVID, like stuff. Pfizer, billions, record profits. I go, same thing. These companies, you're seeing like Bayer doing these settlements for Roundup and these ones right here. That's the small drop in the bucket of the money that's coming in to the company.
Yeah.
They don't,
because again, there's so few companies anymore. Like, we'll track that tonight. Like, this company bought that company, this divested into that company, but they're the same old. So let's run the opening real quick and come back and dive into this. Welcome to the show tonight.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
All right, so welcome to everyone who's watching on, I see, Twitter, a Three Beards YouTube channel, the Into the Outer Realms YouTube channel, and my two Facebook pages. So welcome. Craig, no questions about the reality of your existence this week?
Oh, no. There's, and in full disclosure, we are going to be talking about this, so I'm not above hypocrisy. This is loaded with aspartame. I'm going to be drinking it tonight. So just full disclosure. So
is that Pepsi Zero or just regular Pepsi?
Pepsi Zero, and I have the rest of my flavored blackberry lemonade thing from Walmart. So, I'm going to be fully laden with aspartame on this, this show. So like I said, I'm not without my hypocrisy. So just
there you go. Thanks for fessing up to that. I'm just having some club soda with
so just
lime, but ice cubes from my freezer. So I
so
am
it shows how
probably
prevalent it
ingesting
is and how hard it is to break yourself of this cycle. So just to show,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it is an addiction. I'm not.
I honestly, when I drink those pops, dude, I feel really like crap. Like, I like
Yeah.
them. I don't drink them because of how bad they make me feel. But so, folks, what I'd like to do to start tonight is I'd like to go with a case study, and I have to thank. I know Joe Red Miles is with us in the chat room tonight. Joe brought this to my attention. This is a really good case study. I'll go just a little sideways during it to bring in some other things so that we're mentioning some other things in the larger tree of this topic without deep diving into them. And then the other things we'll cover a little more quickly, but this is basically how it goes. And Craig, it really
Mhm.
reminds me of Radium Girls, which we
Oh
did.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very similar.
All this stuff is just, it's one of those, like the industry, like we'll talk about it. I'm not going to derail us right now. We're going to talk about it. And you're going to see how even the farm industries, when people look at these things, they're going to be like, man, who doesn't love a farmer, that's going to come out here. And you realize that the very companies that are poisoning you are promoting, they're sending out their people and they're putting all this money into farm orgs, into these farming groups that are so that's when you see some of these farming outfits and these farmer groups that fight GMO labeling, that do these things. You realize they're actually, most of them probably don't even realize who they're actually fighting for. They think they're fighting just, to save money for their farm. No, they're actually doing the bidding of mega corporations.
Yeah. And they're in a hell of a position, right?
Oh yeah.
We know about the tragedy of the American farmer. When was Farm Aid in the 1990s, right?
Look at, the picture behind us shows exactly, it's like this, what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Radium Girls, of course, was in the 1920s into the 1940s, leading up to World War II and all of this.
Mhm.
This takes place in the late 90s and goes forward. So 3M, everybody knows 3M. They have very, very, what would you call them? Glossy, very, very sophisticated commercials on TV.
Yes.
How 3M is in so many different parts of your life, and truly they are. So in 1997, there is a rarity at 3M, and that is a female scientist, and her name is Chris Hansen. And she's only been at 3M for about a year when her boss comes to her and he says, "Hey, I'd like you to run some tests." Her specialties, what her PhD was on, was detecting minute particles in blood and other substances in animals and human beings. So he asked her to please do this and to test for fluorochemicals. Fluorochemicals are basically bonding carbon with fluorine. And this happened during the Manhattan Project. It was part of what the chemists of the Manhattan Project were doing. Well, post World War II, they were hired by 3M. So, military and science often get brought into private sector, right? They're very smart people. They've been very well trained. They've been very well funded. And they began mass producing these, basically they're chains of carbon atoms bonded to fluorine atoms. They're resistant to oil, water, and heat. So you can imagine the products like Scotchgard, Teflon. I'll get to that. Early in the 1950s, 3M sells what is called PFOA. These are long, complicated names for these fluorochemicals to DuPont for use in Teflon. So everybody's used to Teflon pan. They're great, especially you're having your eggs or whatever. Eggs could be a mess. Things like Scotchgard. So if you had a grandmother or a mother who always had the spray gun on the furniture to keep it from being stained, these things were in there, and they basically never go away. Once they're there inside of you, they are there forever. Now, Chris Hansen, like I said, was a rarity, a female scientist at a place that had 75,000 employees, very few women in these kinds of positions. Part of the reason was because her dad had co-created Scotch-Brite scouring pads and also the N95 mask, which is no small irony with the companies we're going to be talking about tonight. And so she finds this PFOS. I'll just every once in a while I'll throw one of these out there. Perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. Sounds good. Sulfur, octane, all kinds of stuff in here. Fluoro. And they found it in the blood of 3M factory workers. So this is close to radium girls, right? The girls are putting this stuff directly. It's in their bodies, but they're very confused because everybody's wearing safety gear and this shouldn't be happening. So what they do is they call for a sample of blood from the Red Cross to kind of do like a comparison test, and they find these fluorocarbons in the blood of these Red Cross samples, which means that these fluorochemicals are now in the general population. So 2 decades they've been out there, Scotch Guard, Scotch Band, Teflon, so on and so forth, and they panic. So she gives the results to her boss. He goes in his office. He closes the door. She does not talk to him or see him for 4 days. Dude takes an early retirement after consulting with a bunch of other people. Now, here's what's happened. She gets called up to the main office. The CEO is sitting there, all the executives, and here's this female chemist. And they interrogate her. And during the interrogation, the CEO just kind of closes his eyes, drops his head on his chin, and checks out of the whole process while they just totally brutalize her. They accuse her of betraying the company, of doing tests that weren't authorized, of making things up, of this and that, and they really restrict her work. She can only do certain tests for certain supervisors and for certain applications. So basically, Craig, they farm her out. The daughter of an admitted superstar now this reminds me of Rachel Carson and the whole DDT thing, right? So DuPont Chemicals, Dow Chemicals, their senior scientists brutalized her. They called her every name in the book. They said she should be home barefoot and pregnant. Women have no place in the laboratory. This was all going on. And then Rachel Carson was ultimately villainized for basically they blamed her for all the malaria deaths, on the African continent because she had spoken out about DDT. So this Hansen starts digging. Here's what she finds. That 20 years before, there were animal studies conducted in-house, and they knew at that time that PFOS was toxic. There was an in-house article in the 3M, journal in 1991 saying it, and there was also an independent test that was done. But the 3M lawyers, very, very similar to Radiant Girls, Craig, suppressed it. They continue to humiliate her. A colleague comes in and he gives her blood and he says, "Oh, Chris, can you, test this for these fluorochemicals for us?" And it's horse blood. So he thinks he's going to make a total ass out of her because they're telling her, they're going, "Clean your equipment. Your fluoroscope is dirty. You don't know what you're doing. Pay more attention." They're just in total denial. So the horse blood comes up with PFOS. They also find it in rats. So they understand that it's being spread through fish meal to horses, to other animals. And that means that it's in the general food chain. It's in the water. The fish are digesting it. It's ground up in the fish meal. Then it goes to the animals. They got a massive problem here. Also because PFOS was not an official ingredient in what they were testing. And yet it was showing up. But all these other fluorochemicals break down into it in the body. So even if you're not directly putting it in, these other ones ultimately become it. That's an interesting thing with aspartame that we're going to talk about later. So it's in wastewater. She goes back even further, 69 to 71. There's a Michigan breast cancer study. It's found in blood samples in Sweden going back to the 1950s, Craig, which means they no sooner went to market with this that it was already contaminating people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this stuff was voracious. So he comes to find out more that 3M has been reporting to this to the EPA all along. They're required to by law. They have to file their test results, but they don't mention Hansen. They don't mention Hansen's tests. They don't tell her that they're talking to the EPA, and they lie about the negative effects. So they're cooking the books, basically. So in 2000, so 13 years later, they find it in blood banks. I mean, it's everywhere. Yep. It's in the water. It's in blood banks. It's everywhere. Under EPA pressure, they discontinue the product, but they don't admit culpability. And this is key tonight, folks. Don't admit culpability. Pay the fines, but maintain your innocence. And then Hansford is put into a completely different division. 6 years later, the EPA comes forward now under massive pressure and accuses 3M of violating the Toxic Substances Control Act. They ask them for $1.5 million, but they don't have to admit wrongdoing. Okay. Yeah. Remember that number, 1.5 million. For Emmer Chemicals now undergo a name change, the same way defense contractors do, the same way, you change your name. This guy buys that guy, but it's really the same guy. That helps with taxes and all kinds of things. Now they're called per or polyfluoroalkyls, PFASs. And it is determined that 150 square miles around the 3M plant in Minnesota, I believe, are polluted. Local fish, various fluorochemicals in the water. These things are in the water that 125,000 Minnesotans drink. Now, across the river in West Virginia, or down the road in West Virginia in 1998, there was a farmer who 100 of his cows died, and he hired a lawyer, and the lawyer went to battle against DuPont. Some people may know the movie Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo. It's a very good movie. He plays the lawyer. So he sues them over contamination. Then in Minnesota, he wins the case in West Virginia, goes back to Minnesota. Here's what the judge says. You can sue them for this stuff being supposedly dangerous, but you are not allowed to talk about health issues. You just don't talk about health effects in my courtroom. Yeah. Although by this
nothing
time,
on record.
No, here's the list though. Evidence of cancer, fertility issues, liver and thyroid issues, autoimmune. Autoimmune is affecting more and more people. Ineffective vaccines. That's interesting. It interferes with the processing of the vaccines that we get, as kids for major things. Food allergies and asthma in kids. So, all these different allergies that kids have, some very severe. The jury in this case decides in 3M's favor because they're not allowed to talk about health issues. So what really are you talking about? Grandma sprayed this crap on the furniture, and when I dropped, some food, I didn't get my butt whooped because of Scotchgard. 2010, the Minnesota Attorney General's office files a lawsuit, $850 million. So the number's going out. No admission of guilt, no admission of liability. Just pay the fine, but don't cop to anything. 2018, New York University researchers estimate that these things cost $62 billion a year in health expenses. From the Scotchgard, from the Teflon, and all this kind of stuff. Now, the latest numbers, Craig, are that 45% of U.S. tap water contains at least one forever chemical. So it is the watershed. Now, 3M, and this is where profit comes in, 3M makes 16,000 products that contain these fluorochemicals. Their direct sales are $1.3 billion a year. So do they really give a crap about a $10 million fine here or $100 million fine, And I went and I researched it. Here's 3M's position. If we find something that works just as well, we won't use these anymore. That's their position.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's like after you've been caught, it's like, okay, we won't use that one anymore.
Yeah. So I talked for a good long time. So take over, my brother. I get there's a lot to read in the chat room.
Oh yeah, no, it's the viewer Strata is talking about the autoimmune. Yeah, and Tanya, everybody's guilting me. I won't drink this one. I'll set it off to the side.
It's very interesting, and of course we have to be careful for obvious reasons. But for our radio audience, Radio 10 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights. My wife Tanya is doing some elderly care, and when the person that she cares for, who I believe is in her 80s, when she's not drinking the Diet Pepsi, her memory is so much better. Okay, that's just an observation, not a doctor. We'll hit it and get off, right?
I don't. Yeah. I mean, do you want to start in on glysophate?
We could do that. I just want to say though that attached to these forever chemicals, yesterday BASF, another major, massive chemical company, has been around forever. I knew a guy who used to work for them when I was a kid. In Charleston, South Carolina, is offering to pay $3.6.5 million for testing, removal, filtration from the water. But just keep in mind, these are called forever chemicals for a reason. So yeah, let's move on to glysophate, which means Roundup.
Yeah, one of the things too, just remember, it's like the stuff like what we're experiencing, pretty much a lot of people, there's, you'll get a lot of stories that are anecdotal. I mean, it's just, you have to take them, but it's pretty much across the board. If you think that you're just growing your own food, you're pumping water out of the ground, you're doing all this stuff right here, you're safe. You're not. It's in the ground, it's in the water, it's these things, it's permeating these things. When you have companies, one that used to exist, was bought out by a certain company, Monsanto. Mm-hmm. They were actually engineering to where some of these products like Roundup, the key ingredient, like the herbicides and stuff, was actually genetically put into the crops. So that way the crop itself was naturally, resistant to insects, to diseases, to, had a natural immunity. Well, the problem is, just like anything, like one I could bring up here, but like if you look up right now and they say, well, they monitor this stuff. Well, they give, like, the FDA will do its annual reports. Well, the report that they just released in October 2023 was the testing from 2021. They're 2 years late. 2 years. Yeah. So as anybody knows, there's a lot going to happen in 2 years' time. Mm-hmm. And so they, like, one of the ones they did in 2017, they sampled 879 corn, soybean, milk, and egg samples. And of those, and this is 2017, 59% of the corn and soy samples tested positive for glysophate and glufosinate. And so these are, and what they'll say is, these are below the tolerance level set by the EPA and the FDA. But, just what everybody says, like the tolerance levels, just remember, the tolerance level for human feces in your food is not zero. It's not zero. So just remember, when they say that's safe, they have, this is the part that gets, it's so bad. I mean, it's like, you don't want to demonize your neighbors, but when you walk out and you see somebody holding a jug of Roundup spraying, that's going directly into the water supply.
Right.
And last I checked, there's not very many of our viewers or people around that have those fancy, elaborate water filtration systems that can take it out of their water.
No.
Your Brita water filter is not going to filter out these.
No, not at all.
The forever chemicals, they're not going to filter this stuff out. And so what it is you take this up, you're watering your crops, but the problem is it's already in the water. It's already in the crops. It's already in the food supply. It's so even organic, like, you think people, I'm healthy, I'm eating organic. Yeah. Organic food is testing positive for this. Oats are testing positive. All the stuff, animals, I said, everything is testing for this, because it's just the same thing. Like, they just were talking about microplastics. Everything is being, they're finding, those things in everything now. And that's the thing. Like Lori was just saying, my neighbors use, and that's the problem. It's most people that, I'll kind of derail it here a little bit. Everybody, I think I've said this before. His name just failed me, but he came up with a term. Everybody think, when you say the all-American breakfast, what comes to mind? Everybody's like
bacon and eggs, right?
bacon and eggs, toast, orange, all this stuff. That was a propaganda campaign done to sell products. That was never like that was what's done. And so you see these things that come out, and what they're going to put up a picture is, and one of these companies, and I'm going to bring this here. I don't know if you have it handy, that photo to show that chart.
Oh, damn, I don't. I'm sorry.
No, there's this toxicity thing. There's chart that was brought out. It was brought out by this organization called Washington Friends of Farm and Forests. That's the name of the thing. Who doesn't immediately think, like, man, I'm a friend of the farms, the farmers, the forests. It's like, I love those things too. It sounds thing, but when you actually dig into this company, one of our friends, he brought this additional thing to one of the people that's on the board of directors of this one. His name is James Curry. He's part of Bayer Crop Sciences. So Bayer is who bought out Monsanto, who owns Roundup. And so Roundup is used. They were trying to get it to where the glyphosate stuff was taken out of like the residential use ones, but it was going to be still allowed in farm applications. And so when you look at it's, if you do just real quick, you can type up, you'll find him on LinkedIn. He's the deputy director of state and local government affairs at Bayer USA. So his job is he's involved in state and local government affairs. So his job is to advocate for Bayer products to state and local agencies and these groups. That's his pick. And he's on the board of directors of this Washington Friends of Farms and Forests. And so when you see these things, this is how prevalent this thing is. And the insidious part about this part is they know it's a problem. Monsanto knew it was a problem. They hit, everybody knows that this is a problem. They know this thing, and they keep burying it under the guise of, well, it's not toxic. It's not as toxic. On that chart, as we're talking, I'll try to find it. They list the glysophate in Roundup as less toxic than Bragg's apple cider vinegar. So they're saying, it's safer for you to ingest, glysophate than it is the apple cider vinegar. And aspirin, you look at
aspirin, caffeine. Yeah, they say they're like hundreds of times more toxic. Craig, I'm going to email this to you. Will that work?
Yeah, it could. It's like I said, if I can look it up real quick, too.
I didn't know where to find it, but I'll send you the actual image.
Yeah, so as we're talking, then that's the problem with glyphosate is people are like, well, I can just avoid it. Even Lori is saying, it's like you see your neighbor saying, you can't hate, or be upset with your neighbors for doing it because this is a problem. It's like controlling weeds. Everybody's under the same thing. It's safe. It's safe. We'll be talking about aspartame, FDI thing. It's safe. I'm drinking these. I'm drinking these things too. Everybody just knows this controls weeds. Well, one of the things that they target, everybody sees it. What's one of the main products that these companies target as is one of the invasive things that must be killed by these things? Dandelions.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows, dandelions are actually one of, should actually be considered a superfood. Every part of that thing is, has benefits, for health. I said a dandelion should actually be a full-on crop that that is grown, consumed, and used in all different fashions. Yeah. But it's considered an invasive, a weed that must be destroyed at all costs. I wonder why. It ties into the profit side. You make money from treatment, not from prevention.
Yeah, right. And some people in the audience are talking about, if you compare us to Europe, obesity issues, autoimmune issues, other health issues, autism, all these different kinds of things. And you have to be really careful. Craig and I were playing contextual box roulette, and we're trying to figure out what they're going to caution our audiences once this is archived on YouTube.
Well, it's like Maria is just saying that she said, I use it like not on my food, but just in the weeds. But that's the problem is it's going into the ground, seeps into the groundwater, and now the water that's being used to, you do the full circle. You're taking water from the system. It doesn't matter where the water is coming from now. It's in aquifers. It's everywhere now. And so when you're using the water, whether it's city water, whether it's well water, it contains that chemical from the weed killers now, and you're putting that into your food. And so all the food supply has it. And that's the thing. It's like not anybody. That's why I can't stress that enough. It's not to demonize the people using the product, because it's just, we've grown up. Everybody's ingrained. How do you get rid of the weeds that's in your driveway and those cracks? You want your sidewalks, like, just spray this stuff real quick. Nobody was taught to think about the potential for a thing. But Tanya just said it right now. It's now permeated everything.
Yeah, look at those fluorochemicals that I opened with. 45% of the drinking water. The fish are in the water, they come out, that goes in the fish meal, which goes in the animal. Even if you don't, like, I get down on my hands and knees and pull the friggin' weeds out of my sidewalk and the elephant trunks from the old houses that we're trying to preserve that were around us. So anyway, I have a few. Wow, people are getting really upset. That's the idea. Don't flush used prescriptions down the toilet. When they test the water, Craig, they find all of these antidepressants and anxiety medicines in the water.
We got meth gators down here.
Yeah, you got 65% of the population taking these things. They're in the water. So yes, unused, right? It's that, right? It's obviously it's coming out in the waste products.
Well, it's not even just unused prescriptions. As a society, we're so over medicated that it's actually the residue from that's even being filtered through us. It's still going into the waste stream. Yeah, that's how prevalent this stuff is. I mean, it's hard to just immediately discast and say, oh, these companies are doing it intentionally. But the part that they're doing intentionally is they're masking the problem. They know what the problem is. This is what was this? There's a couple of shows that just did it. It was the one makers of Oxy, the original ones that made it. It was at Purdue.
Yeah,
Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. They know that there's a problem, but the problem is they love money more than they do doing the right thing. And that's what all these companies are. It's like the money thing is what's the driving force. They know that, but they don't care, because it's like a lot of people. It doesn't affect me now, so I don't care. Well, 2 generations from now, we're going to be talking what are we going to be doing about all these flipper babies? We're having these problems with birth defects, and we can't figure what it is. And I'm convinced, and I've said this on several shows, I'm convinced this gluten issue that a lot of people are having is from this, like, glysophate and these other chemicals.
Oh yeah, because when
we're growing, I say it all the time. When we're growing up, you tell me one time that you were in a get together for Thanksgiving or something like that, and you had somebody talking about, I can't have the dinner roll, it just tears me up.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That is, and now, it was just that one weird kid in school that couldn't have peanuts.
Yeah.
And so you had Bob was just the weird one that couldn't eat that. He'd puff up if he got close to one. Now it seems like every class there's like 2 or 3 that can't have.
Yeah. That's the fluorochemicals. They've tied it to kids' asthma and breathing problems. Absolutely. You know what gets me way worse than the wheat? And I know I do have a wheat sensitivity. Corn. It looks like I have a basketball under my skin if I have any kind of corn product within like 15 minutes. So I think that's right. So let's here's a little roundup by the numbers. Roundup, of course, made by Monsanto, now owned by Bayer AG, giant pharma company. So when we're talking about these chemical companies, so many of them are owned by the pharma companies. So many are bought by the pharma companies because, hey, if we're making people sick, let's also make them better. And that'll offset some of the money that we're paying in these fines and all of that. So going all the way back to 2015, okay, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is part of the WHO, and I know how many of us feel rightly so about the WHO, classified glysophate as probably carcinogenic to humans. That's the World Health Organization's cancer arm said it 9 years ago. But the EPA came back and said it's deemed safe when used as directed. Those are interesting words.
Yeah,
if you
type
security,
if you type it in right now, and I have it right here, their exact thing says it poses no risk of concern to human health from current use of glysophate.
Yeah,
that's right on the EPA.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But at the same time, okay, thousands of lawsuits have been filed against Monsanto and then Bayer. And it's very interesting to me, Craig. Bayer bought Monsanto after all of this broke. So you're buying a company with a huge legal liability. That shows you how the money works. Exposure to Roundup caused non-Hodgkin lymphoma and other cancers. That's the core of this non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And I know a dude who had it in his early 20s. Okay. And it was horrible what he went through. In 2018, a jury awarded a groundskeeper who developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma $289 million, which was later reduced. Okay. 2018, Bayer acquires Monsanto. So they're already on the hook for thousands of lawsuits. 2020, Bayer intends to settle roughly 100,000 lawsuits for more than $10 billion. Okay, that was in 2020. In November 2023, they paid $300 million out more. So this is ongoing. Wow. So the cognitive dissonance between this is perfectly safe and we're paying out billions of dollars in fines. People are getting sick, dying. The World Health Organization's, I mean, it's crazy. You brought up birth defects. I want to touch on something that happened in the 1950s, which actually did not affect or involve the United States. So it's fair to say, hey, this isn't just the United States thing. And it was a product called thalidomide. It was developed by a German company. I know I pick on the damn Germans all the time.
That's right.
Chemie Grünenthal in 1954. It's marketed in 1957 as a sedative and treatment for morning sickness and insomnia. So women are like, no morning sickness? Give that to me. They're taking it in Germany. They're taking it in the UK. They're taking it in Australia. They're taking it in Canada. Suddenly, there's this huge spike in birth defects. Really, really serious birth defects. And they come to find out that this was never tested on pregnant women, this product. It was never tested on pregnant rats. Yet doctors are handing this stuff out like candy to pregnant women. So from the late 50s to the early 60s, phocomelia, which is malformed limbs, heart defects, blindness, severe disabilities. If you want to get your heart broken about all of this, look up images of thalidomide babies or watch Call the Midwife. Call the Midwife did this. 10,000 children, 10,000, many of whom died. And it was withdrawn in 1962. Obviously, 10,000 children. That's 10,000 pregnancies. Crazy, dude. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Maria says the EPA said our coal mines were bad for us, so now we have to buy most of our coal from China. Yeah, and having lived in West Virginia for 8 years, coal purchased from China and all of those relationships and all.
Yeah, well, it kind of
involved in those deals. It
kind of segues back to another a previous about a presidential administration that eliminated a lot of coal-fired plants and stuff because it was deemed bad for the environment. Well, it was you can start to see it wasn't. It was more about reducing our infrastructure, and be making us more dependent on the world instead of us being able to sustain ourselves. Yeah. So it just goes down the same thing. I mean, you go down all these lists. It's over and over again. You see that these companies put profits over, because I don't begrudge anybody from making money on something that they do. That part is not what bothers me. It's the part when you have these companies that do intentional harm in the way to make profit. That's the problem. And it's like a lot of people that you see, like the kids on campus that are railing against capitalism. Capitalism is not bad. Capitalism is just anything. It's like us selling a T-shirt. You know, that's capitalism. Crony capitalism is the ones where, like that guy I was talking about, James Curry, he's directly tied from a corporation who goes and lobbies with all these groups into government things, knowing that what he's promoting is harming the very people that he's promoting it to. And you can say, well, for the legal thing, I should say allegedly knows it. Is what I should say. Right. But it's one of those things. How many times you got to see these lawsuits from Roundup that's owned by Bayer, and before you could say, dude, you're dealing poison in the guise of this is helping. This is going to help for crop. Yeah, and that's what I said. Crony capitalism is the problem. But people forget that to add that crony part. They just immediately say, corporate, capitalism bad. This is why the problem. No. It's this incestuous thing where they deal with those in power and business working hand in hand. Those are the problem ones.
I have a beautiful case study for you on this, dude. Aspartame. Donald Rumsfeld. We all know politics, very powerful topic. We don't know what we don't know. Perennial in both Bush administrations, I think involved going back to Reagan. He becomes CEO and later president of a company called G.D. Searle and Company, a pharmaceutical company that developed aspartame, which of course is an artificial sweetener. It's in a product that Craig has right there that he's refraining from drinking. And he was involved from 1977 to 1985. Rumsfeld was instrumental in navigating the regulatory process for aspartame's approval because the FDA didn't want it. They said this crap is dangerous and we don't want it. But
it's the fourth ingredient in this.
Yeah, he had all the connections. He had all the power. He had all the influence. So the FDA says no. So check this out, guys. Here's what he does. He engineers the appointment of the FDA commissioner, gets Reagan to appoint him in 1981, smack dab in the middle of his tenure as CEO and president. And the dude that he got in as commissioner approved aspartame that year. That's it, Craig. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you were talking about. You bring in a guy like, okay, you put a Dick Cheney in charge of a Halliburton, shit's going to get done. Contracts are going to be approved.
There's one of these things, like, because we're talking about aspartame, and it's I don't know if I've ever said this on the show before, but I learned this when I was in college. The fix is always worse than the problem it's trying to fix. And this goes back to, there's a study where Ireland was overrun by insects, so they brought in mice. Then the mice get out of control. So they bring in cats. Now that, it's got cats are out of control. That's what the aspartame was created in 1965 by James M. Schlatter. I think it's Schlatter. It could be Schlatter. This was done to replace sugar. Aspartame is considered to be about 150 times, or more than sugar is what it is. So you basically, you don't have to use it, so there's more. I'm going to keep the logo off here, just help us out here. So that there's more profit to be made now. Now I don't have to use as much product. Now this is supposed to help with reduce obesity rates, is what they're talking about. That was why it was. And catch this, it was helped to fight obesity rates in developing countries, and those with diabetes is what it was. So once again, it's in this one. I guess it was looking at, if I remember right, it was discovered by accident, and then it was basically, it wasn't approved for large scale production until 1981.
Yeah, right. And it took Rumsfeld pushing the commissioner of the FDA, through his connections with Reagan to get it done. So here's the big problem, and some of this is controversial. So yes, as I learned from the dudes on Young Turks, man, you got to say allegedly. That's the way around it.
Yeah.
So
that's why I said so. It's allegedly, and that's why I was like, I'm going to turn the label around. Allegedly.
Allegedly. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with aspartame. The same way that a byproduct of Agent Orange is something way the hell more dangerous than Agent Orange, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. Just like these fluorochemicals breed other unanticipated fluorochemicals, aspartame can cause neurological disorders, especially if you have a condition called phenylketonuria. Then you're especially at risk due to your inability to metabolize phenylalanine, which is a component of aspartame. Now, Sierra Mist, dude, I absolutely loved Sierra Mist when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was drinking it, and I was getting angry all the time. And somebody pointed out to me, "You're drinking that aspartame shit. I bet you there's phenylalanine in that stuff." And I looked on the back, and sure enough, it was like the third or fourth ingredient. Okay, it's a cancer risk. It causes insulin sensitivity, allegedly, appetite regulation, allegedly. So you're drinking a Diet Coke, but you're eating more food. There you go. That works out pretty well because it screws with gut microbiota. And I have to tell you, after I got long COVID and I started taking digestive enzymes and probiotics, I cannot tell you how important our gut health is. Like, I'm a total believer in that now. Here's another problem. Aspartame byproducts include methanol, which converts to formaldehyde in the body. So you can kind of prepare for your future preservation when they're going to reanimate your brain by drinking lots and lots of aspartame, which will become formaldehyde in your body. Now, this is allegedly could be the culprit of Gulf War syndrome. Pallets of soda containing aspartame sitting out in the hot desert sun. At a certain temperature, it converts to methanol outside of the body. And that methanol then converts to formaldehyde inside the body, allegedly. But there is a good bit of research on it. Just like Craig, there's a bunch of research that says that is absolute horseshit. So the lady is protesting too much.
Well, and that's one of the things that you'll see, and that's where groups like this, Washington, Friends of Farms and Forests, come in.
Mm-hmm.
These companies will put these things in here, and put it in the guys, like you have like these artificial sweetener, or you have these things, and they'll have these groups come out and say, no, this is a essential piece, to helping the middle America survive. We must keep doing this stuff because we like high fructose corn syrup. We know this is bad for us. This is not something that we should be consuming. But there's so much in the lobby. I mean, we had somebody when we were doing Three Beards podcast, we had somebody on, her and her husband shut down when I asked them about the corn subsidies and stuff like this, because it was an immediate thing that you knew, okay, this is something we're not supposed to talk about it. And that's the problem. It's like, these things, canola oil is terrible for you.
Yep.
But this major lobby in these companies, behind these things. Maria, one of the people watching, she even mentioned this thing too. Is just where, and that's, you have these they engineered some of these crops to be, that they have to be resistant to Roundup. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not, the product, kills the crops. So it's one of those things. At what point do we start thinking, okay, there must be something wrong in the food supply? And that's where it comes down to stuff like, that's where poison for profit, we debated the other one, like the poison in you, it's like, it's just these names, but that's basically what it is it is literal poison, but we're all eating it. We can't escape it. Mm-hmm. It's used in so many products. Aspartame's in dairy products. It's in some dairy products. It's in, if anything is, I'll cover up again, but if anything says 0 sugar, if anything says, even like low calorie stuff like this, most likely it has an aspartame, aspartame or an aspartame-like product that's used in the thing. And that's just most people, they try to avoid it. You can't. I mean, you won't be eating
flavored. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I was going to say there's that's the thing, is just there's a lot of people are like, well, I just don't eat it. I'm like, when you actually break down all the stuff that has aspartame, fructose corn syrup, when you have all these things going here, you realize you basically, unless you prepare everything from scratch, you can't avoid these products.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And when you look at them cumulatively, and the fluorochemicals being in 45% of the water, and the
Mhm.
the opioids and whatever. Yeah. I mean, basically, all of us have some of these things.
Well, look what just happened at East
in it.
Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Right.
accident. That
Yeah.
that was a major introduction of those chemicals into the water system,
Yeah.
instead of a slight introduction
Yep.
through multiple products. This was a literal, just all at once. So what has that done to the water supply in Ohio?
Yep. Yeah.
They didn't contain it all. So now it's the thing is, so what somebody like in your area is supposed to do now, because if the aquifer is contaminated, which it's not allegedly,
Right.
but it's one of the things, if that is what somebody's supposed to do. And that's, like I said, I hate to be just doom and gloom the whole time. It's literally, you just have to understand that a lot of the stuff that's going on, they've even discovered there's like a connection between, I wish I could add it. It's like an axis where it's your brain, your stomach. So diet, the diet itself looks like that's what's affecting a lot of these people, like this high rise in anxiety, depression, and stuff like that.
Yep.
Probably has something to do with the food supply. And if we want to go nefarious and sinister, what if that's the intention? By slowly contaminating the food supply, we hook people on these psychochemicals that to alter brain chemistry, making a more compliant, docile populace that are unwilling, that are just, like I said, just go with it. I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that. The complacency is crazy. So just to wrap up that, 85 Rumsfeld negotiated the acquisition of Searle by Monsanto. That was a buddy meeting. And it is now owned by Pfizer. So there you go. The pharma companies, the chemical companies, these terrible additives. Craig, there's a couple things I want to touch on.
Yeah, go for it.
Because they're kind of personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on here. I want to touch on Agent Orange, right?
Oh, yeah.
Developed during the Vietnam War by the U.S. military in something called Operation Ranch Hand. It was made by Monsanto and Dow Chemical. There they are. The same old names pop up constantly, right? 39 episodes of this show, and that's what we have learned. The same names, same politicians, same country, same organizations. This, of course, was an herbicide defoliant for removing forest cover and also destroying crops of the enemy, right? The North Vietnamese.
Herbicide. Remember that. Herbicide.
Yeah. It's a mixture, actually, of two herbicides. And then during the process, it gets contaminated with dioxin, which is a highly toxic compound. So it's not the Agent Orange. It's the process, the combination of the herbicides to make the Agent Orange that creates this other product called dioxin, which is terrible. It was used extensively for 10 years. More than 20 million gallons of these herbicides, including Agent Orange, were sprayed over Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. This stuff stays in the soil for 100 years. This dioxin stuff. Now, as it was being used in country, right? In Vietnam, there were immediate effects. Guys were getting skin rashes. They were having respiratory issues. They were having psychological distress. All right. Now, all these years later, they're finding that it causes non-Hodgkin lymphoma. There it is again. Prostate and lung cancer. Look at the big spike in prostate cancer.
Yep.
I don't want to put the maloik on either one of us. I wear my eye and my horn here, the evil eye, but prostate cancer, soft tissue sarcomas. My father had 38 golf ball sized tumors removed from his back, from his neck to his shoulders to his belt line over the course of his life after being dosed with Agent Orange. My dad has also had a patch put on his heart. He's had to have his eyes fixed surgically. He has polyneuropathy. So he had to take early retirement. He walks with a cane. He's in constant pain. because of his legs. He's on 100% disability with the Navy. He was in naval intelligence and he was part of a Marine expeditionary force. It took 10 years, Craig, of fierce fighting to get his documents unlocked so that he could get disability.
Well, and that's just a little real quick. The main reason for that is it's just like a disclosure thing. That's, everything's redacted.
Yeah.
The problem is by saying this is what possibly caused it, that opens up the avenue for people to say, like, wait a minute, and it shows, it shows that you were the complacency of the agencies, but it also shows that you were in cahoots with the same thing. You knew that there's a problem, so they can't release it. And that's what I said. So the fact that you were able to get that much is amazing.
Thank you, Wu. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, Vietnam's been killing my dad for 20 years. Tanya's father's on partial disability. He wasn't directly dosed, but he used to travel. He was in Air Force Intelligence and NSA, and he traveled back and forth on transport planes from Thailand, where they would also transport this stuff. So he has some of the neuropathy issues as well. Birth defects, peripheral neuropathy, heart disease, hormone regulation, reproductive health, autoimmune, Ehlers-Danlos. There are two major organizations for families of people who were exposed to Agent Orange. My dad came to me 10 years and he said, Joey, the government is going to contact you. They're going to give you a full body of tests, blood, everything else. I have this weird skin condition that comes and goes. They're going to pay for everything. So about 6-8 months went by, Craig. And I said to my dad, what's up with that? And he said, oh, they killed it. I mean, it would have bankrupted the country, right?
Oh, yeah.
But my sister had 3 miscarriages and 1 baby was born prematurely. And she had a severe fever, very severe fever when she had another one of her babies. And of course, everybody knows about our child, Joe, who was on full disability by the time she was 18. Has a number of degenerative and autoimmune problems, will probably be in a wheelchair by the time she's 30 years old. She was a competitive taekwondo. She was competitive horseback riding. Now she basically sits in a house in constant pain all the time with, 12 different doctors.
Wow.
And so there are 2 groups out there. So if you had a relative who was exposed to Agent Orange, you may want to look into that. Not a lot is being done. Some doctors won't even talk about it, Craig. You talked about that, right? The corn modifying. Doctors won't talk about it. So Joe will say to them, my grandfathers were both exposed to Agent Orange, blah, 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 this and that. They just won't talk about it. They've been ordered not to. But there are veterans organizations and victim groups out of there, and it's basically been proven these multi-generational effects of dioxin exposure. Now, I just want to say really quickly, dioxin. You guys can all look this up. Some of you know that I do a lot of work for immersive gamification experiences for Route 66. Times Beach, Missouri, was a Route 66 town. In 1925, the St. Louis Times promoted the town as a resort for doctors to relax and fish, and they sold them 20 by 100-foot lots to any subscriber of the newspaper for $67.50. That was pretty darn good. 1972 to 1976, there's this contractor because they have a problem with road dust. So they hire this dude to lay down this substance to suppress the dust on the roads. Well, this is a combination of dioxin, the byproduct of Agent Orange, and hexachlorophene, which is used in disinfectants and motor oil. So he mixes all this crap up and he puts it on the roads to suppress the dust. What happens 6 years later? There's a flood, and the EPA is testing the floodwaters, and they find dioxin all over the place. They shut down the entire damn town. 2,200 residents were pushed out of the town. Every single house was razed, and it became a Superfund site. In 1985, it was officially disincorporated. Took 14 years and $110 million. And Craig, you know who went to jail? Nobody. Not even the dude that laid the crap down. He was mixing motor oil, hexachlorophene, and dioxin. And
Yeah.
that just dudes making a living. Crap happens. Like, what can we do here?
Well, it's just, I think especially when it comes down to, I mean, it's going to be really, I think I'm trying to find a bigger image, but there's a lot of these ones when you do here. I just want, everybody says, well, here's like you see this one. This is just like one of many that you can find when somebody says, like the government says that this is, this is safe. This is, we've done these tests. Like this is one, they used to intentionally spray people. You got the picture of that. I'm not sure if you saw it.
You have a picture of that?
Yeah, I got it right there to share. Yeah, that's when they're spraying people with DDT.
Yep.
And so, I don't know I'm not sure if you're able to put that up.
Hopefully it will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's many of these images. So when you see people say like the EPA, the FDA says it's safe, just remember that's the same people. Nothing's changed. When you look at the list, they talk about parts per million.
Yep.
Of things that are allowed, and you look at it and you're like, from the stuff we've been talking about, this is known. This is not, well, we deem it safe. No, the neurological effects. There's huge similarities between the glysophate and the components of Roundup with Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And so we already know, like, nobody's going to sit there and spray Agent Orange in their yard.
No.
But you give them a container of Roundup, weed control.
Yep.
They're going to town. They're killing them weeds. But and that's the thing is, like, what we're talking about, these people, these guys from these organizations that are on all these groups promising you, no, this is safe. Just use it. It's fine. As long as you do it in a safe manner. What's a safe manner? One drop is bad.
Yep.
Well, like I said, every time we're drinking a bottle of water, we're getting parts per billion of glysophate, and these things in our system. What's it doing to us? What's causing these things? Why, you can't figure out, how did I go from this to where suddenly I can't eat these things. I'm diabetic. I've got all these medical conditions. I bet you down the road, we're going to find out that it probably even is tied to eczema and everything else.
Yeah.
And that can't listen. I'm glad you said, because I was thinking about it. I wonder if this gets tied, because the federal government actually has, they started using glysophate. The military used like Roundup, Quick Pro, the Rodeo, Aquamaster, stuff. The federal government was using these things in the military.
Oh yeah.
And so once again, what aspects of these things? So it makes you wonder, like, this can't legit, how many of these people were there? And the problem is they can't admit it, because then that opens up the thing, is because then it comes down to, what did you know? Who knew it? When did you know it? All these things. And if they break these things down, then we start realizing that we've been lied to even more than we already know we are.
Right. And the military is so culpable. I mean, one of the first shows we did, dude, was with Edgewood Arsenal, where they were dosing military guys with nerve gases, dosing them with LSD, dosing them with, really hard to pronounce, things, to look at the effects, testing our own guys, and then not allowing them to sue the government because, they were in the military and it's what they signed up for. So really?
Yeah. I mean, think about the directions on the back. Yeah. On the back of these weed killers tell you, make sure you spray this not on a rainy or windy day, and make sure that you wear long pants, long sleeve shirt, gloves, goggles, and a mask. So they're already admitting that that this is not a safe product.
Right. Well, come on, not to be too reductionist, but if something kills plants, it can't be good for a human being. We're not that biologically different.
Organic is organic.
Yeah. Life is life. And when I mean, like I said, I get on my knees over there, but our driveway with the white gravel stones got a little out of control, and our landlord felt bad. So they sent over one of their partners with a big tank on his back spraying the driveway, killing these
Here's the thing. If somebody wants this, I can give them the recipe, and it actually does work. Epsom salt, white vinegar, and Dawn blue dish soap.
Nice.
You mix that together, and you spray that, and it will stick to the weeds. It'll dry them up, and stuff like that, and it's not toxic.
That Dawn has gotten expensive.
Oh yeah, but you don't use a lot of it. It's like use like a tablespoon of it stuff. But it's basically the white vinegar and the Epsom salt is the main thing that attacks. And the Dawn dish soap just helps it kind of adhere to the plant.
So,
but yeah, so if anybody wants that recipe, I can get that thing too. But that's something like that is definitely a different alternative for somebody that if you got to kill those weeds in your driveway.
Yeah, exactly right. So I have one more, Craig, and it comes with a story. So I'm gonna probably make people cry, but it's important. So, and that is the opioid epidemic, which being from West Virginia and now from Ohio, just absolutely rampant here. So Purdue Pharma developed and marketed something called OxyContin in 1996. And this was good news for heroin addicts and a lot of people. And it was supposedly time release to reduce the abuse risk compared to other opioids, compared to other serious painkillers. And it was aggressively marketed. They knew that it was addictive. They saw it quickly and they downplayed that. They promoted it as safe and an effective solution for chronic pain. Here's the worst part to me. They incentivized doctors to write scripts for this stuff. And it was for narrow stuff. And then they said, well, it also works for this. And it also works for this. And doctors were given vacations and golf clubs and resorts and cars and money and all this kind of crazy crap. All the time, Purdue was claiming that the risk of addiction was less than 1%. So, of course, opioid prescriptions went absolutely through the roof. And you guys know that Hulu and Netflix and Amazon, everybody's got shows with good actors about this kind of stuff. It was a gateway to serious transition drugs. Heroin, fentanyl caused rampant addiction. Hundreds of thousands of people died because you get put on this stuff. It's addictive. Then you're better and they cut you off. And you're addicted to this shit. Okay.
Individualize the dose. Propaganda.
Yeah. Thousands of lawsuits from states, cities, individuals. Okay. So here's the story. Very, very close friend of ours here in Ohio. And there's a big podcast about this because of some other work that Tanya and I do. Her daughter was a 16-year-old superstar, soccer star, academic star. She had a curvature of the spine. And so she underwent a medical procedure. So she was put on OxyContin. It was a gateway to serious addictive drugs when they took her off the OxyContin. By the time she was 18 years old, she was a serious drug addict. She got out of it. She got herself clean. And one day the phone rings. It's the ex-boyfriend, the drug dealer. Hey, let's get together. I'd really like to see you. Nobody knows what happens in the next 12 hours, but less than a mile from where our house is, she was dumped in a ditch, naked, beaten, dead.
Oof.
So I said I might make some people cry tonight. That is a story. So in 2007, Purdue and 3 executives pleaded guilty to criminal charges of misbranding OxyContin. They paid $634 million in fines. In 2020, Purdue reached an $8.3 billion settlement with the Department of Justice, and the Sackler family, who founded Purdue Pharma, agreed to pay $225 million in civil penalties. Craig, it was my understanding that Purdue went bankrupt and no longer existed. But I went to their website today. They're undergoing a Chapter 11 reorganization, and they're still trying to give people money and make it right, but they still exist, and they're still selling stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's stories like that's just one story of what happened to that girl.
Yeah. And that the problem is that even the settlement is is not even close to what they made.
Yeah.
Off the side.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's just, yeah. And you can't, I mean, obviously you can't blame Purdue for her death, but it's one of those things. It's what led her to that situation. Without
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's one of those, it's definitely that, and M.A. Allen, no, that's, it's this guy. That's Three Beards is this guy. I'm sharing it to our page. Yeah. So that's the tragedy of those things. And that's where you see these things. It's once again, it's story after story of these things where these individuals put profit over, you could say the original creator of Oxy. Okay. They might have had a vision for this is going to help people. But the problem is along that way, it derailed into, where, or should say, metastasized into an evil that was like, I would rather have the profit over this thing. And that's where a lot of these things have lost that sight. Yeah, this thing may have been originally done to help people in a third world country and diabetics, so that way they could at least, have that sweet treat that they've been craving. Well, now it's become an addictive thing to where, we're drinking liters of this on a weekly basis,
Right.
and I'm under no, I could keep it that way. I'm under no illusion that this is health food.
No.
That,
and I don't think anybody is.
It's a dark colored liquid. The caramel color is bad for you. All this stuff, so it's just, but they said, what is it? Tastes good, makes you feel good. And that's one of the things. Isn't that the same way? Oxy was the same way. Helped you, made you feel good, helped you think. But then what happens when it comes down? You got to have more. You got to keep having more.
Yeah. And the ironic part was they were celebrating it as a way to get people off of heroin. And it became circular.
And it actually ended up putting more people on heroin.
Yeah.
Than
just an absolute crisis. Check the private chat, sir.
Oh, mine. Okay.
As we're wrapping up tonight.
Oh yeah. You would hope I'd be prepared for that.
It's okay if you're not. It's cool. All right. So when we come back in 2 weeks, just watch for the banners and for the announcements. We're still finalizing our summer program.
Yeah, like I said, it's like what's the possibility? Like I said, we definitely, we got some really cool ones coming up.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
Yeah, it most likely it could be the missing hikers.
Nice, that's a really good one.
Yeah, so I said that might be well. Now that I just tease people, let's do that. Well, we'll give you a little more details on it, but we'll say I'm trying. The name of where they were lost is failing me right now. I can't.
It was 4 guys, right, in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think that's where it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sounds good to me. So yeah, a little. So we're gonna maybe get away from the political a little, get back to some pure sinister mysteries. Craig and I also talked, and as things are moving, there was a big announcement today. I think took some people by surprise. A certain verdict came in late this afternoon. Jury verdict. Oh, you didn't know?
No, I have not. I have not heard about it yet.
G on all 34.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, after 2 days of deliberation. Yeah. So, and of course, the virtual roll call to get Biden on the books. And, I don't necessarily like when podcasters say, look, we're not political. We just don't want war and we just want everything to be fair. But Craig and I may change the subject matter for some of our shows if something is really big happening leading up to November. But we both have agreements that what's going on is not in the two-party system. It's above it, these people that we talked about you week and after week. So we're not going to be endorsing anybody or anything like that.
No, it'd be one of like I said, we talked about it, just where it would be, like if there was election coverage, it wouldn't be, well, this is a pro-Biden coverage, this is pro-Trump coverage. This would be more actual commentary as things are going in, and just talking about this is where this would happen. And I've kind of talked about that because it's one of those we could, because even like that. It's not even just Joe Biden giving Ukraine power to use those things. You're seeing the master hand of the global movement. And that's why I said, this Biden is just another part in the
Yeah, it's the
he's another piece.
It's the war machine.
Yeah, they said he's
elected in. Yeah,
because it's one of those things. Why did Putin suddenly decide that now is the time? Because the pieces were in play.
Yeah,
he didn't do it 4 years prior. All of a sudden, boom, and that's one of those things. Yeah, so that'll be the kind of stuff that we'll dabble on. But there's never going to be, I don't think you guys could tell who I'd be for or who, because I've never really made the thing.
That's exactly right. They're
I
all
think
bought
they both
and sold.
suck. I think they both suck.
Yeah,
both parties suck. So that helps.
They're bought and sold. The guy that's in the White House literally isn't even running the country. We know that. Yeah, so going from defensive to offensive weapons, I had missed that. Was that announcement recent?
Yeah, they're talking about that because Zelensky's been asking for. I know we're in overtime, but I know Zelensky's been asking. That's they've been wanting to use the things, but we've been restricting, saying that you can't use our weapons for offensive attacks across.
Right.
For it might do well. How's it any different than our weapons being used against Russia in their border? I mean, it's just I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, this is a mess. I mean, people say, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, it's a mess because if you go from the angle of like, well, this was a danger, it's the same thing. Like when we invaded Iraq, you can make these cases. Well, it's the same thing. Whenever Putin's up there saying, well, we would like to see peace and do it. Well, then do it already.
Yeah.
Stop. For somebody who wants peace, you keep lobbing missiles, on the other side of the country, away from the front line. It's not like you're attacking the front lines of these things. No, you're bombing the whole other side, almost hitting Poland. So obviously you're not after peace, because you have people say, well, they're going after this infrastructure that was in here that was creating these weapons. Well, then do what we do, all this stuff, and do a tactical strike and take the facility out and then walk away.
Yeah.
When we take out a location, we don't suddenly put all the military in and invade Qatar. No,
and
we take yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it.
No. I was just gonna say, look what happened in Ramad 2 days ago. No, it was Sunday. 45 civilians killed in a tent encampment. That other issue that you really
that's the thing too. It's like a lot of people, they're focused on these things. It's like there's no good side in this, because Hamas is putting weapons and firing rockets from refugee camps.
Yeah.
So when Israel attacks it, Israel's bad and Hamas is bad. There's not a good side in this thing. And there's so everybody's like, one of the things, who's the you can't justify either. It's like one of those things. It's like you're going to kill civilians, or it's like you're like, you can't win.
No,
it's a mess, and it's done. Basically, a lot of the stuff is you can just see the power play. It makes your head hurt.
Yeah, let's end with this one, because this goes back to the Nazis and other subjects that we did. That's it.
I think that's exactly it. I think it is. It's like the stuff. It's just seeing how far they can go,
and then pushing radical alternatives is what's coming. Alternate foods, alternate transportation systems, alternate currencies. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. No, it's not the retaliation part that's the bad part. It's the stuff like when you strike, when you fire back at a refugee camp where a rocket was fired from, there's not going to be a good outcome. I mean, you're going to take out the rocket supply, but what other the collateral damage? There's just not, it's just there's no. It's as a part, you can't really feel like you could support either action because both are equally bad. Yeah.
Well, we're over time, and this wasn't even our subject for tonight.
I know.
So we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Listen to Radio
with an interesting mystery of some missing. Were they hikers, Craig? No.
I think they were hikers. Like I said, I'd have to look it up real quick.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. We will.